Hey everyone, Mr. Figuet here, and we're going to be talking about what's called the angle addition postulate. And at this point, if you've already learned or talked about the segment addition postulate, the good news is this video is going to have a lot of overlapping themes from that. So you're going to be using a lot of the same ideas. But what we're going to learn to do is how to add angles together and then to use that to find missing angle measures. So what is the angle addition postulate? It's the idea that two smaller angles will add up to the larger angle. So for example, the measure of angle BAC, which I'm going to note here in red, plus the measure of angle DAC, which is going to be measured here in blue, is going to be equal to the overall entire angle, which is going to be BAD. So in all, we're going to be taking red plus blue, and that equals green in the drawing that I have here. So the terminology I used in the segment addition video is this idea that we're going to take part of an angle plus another part of the angle, and that is going to equal whole. So we're going to use the concept part plus part equals whole for this lesson. So without further ado, let's look at some examples. So in this diagram here, we have angle BAC is equal to 30. So let's go ahead and let's draw that in red. Okay, so we have that in red. And then the other angle that they told us is BAD instead. Well, BAD is actually going to be the combination of these two angles combined, so this entire blue angle. What they want us to find is the measure of angle DAC, which is going to be the one here in green. So that's our unknown angle. We'll call that X. The red angle, as I've labeled here, is 30 degrees, and then the one that is blue ends up being 50 degrees. So if we use the concept of part plus part equals whole, what we can see here is my first part is 30, my second part is unknown, so we'll call it X, and my third part is 50. So my equation is 30 plus X equals 50. All I have to do at this point is subtract 30 from both sides, and we get an answer of 20. And you may be looking at this and say, well, Mr. Figuet, I could have just taken 50 minus 30. Why do I have to write out this long equation if I already know what the answer is? And the answer I have is, yeah, you can do that. The reason I'm showing it to you this way is because if we have another example like this, and all of a sudden I introduce algebra into the mix, we may want to use this part plus part equals whole idea a little more thoroughly. So let's do this one. IHJ, and it's important to label this. I'm going to use red. IHJ is going to be this one here in red. KHJ, so that's going to be this one here, is 2x plus 8. So let's actually write these on here so that we can kind of get an idea. And then the last thing that we know is that KHI, the entire thing, is 72 degrees. So we'll do this, I'll point an arrow there, and say 72. So now we're going to use this concept of part plus part equals whole to help us find the value of X. So here we go. Part plus part equals whole. My first part is in blue. That's 2x plus 8. My second part is 40. And then lastly, my whole is 72. Now we just have to solve this using our algebraic techniques. Step one, we want to combine like terms since they're on the same side of the equation. So that becomes 48. Next, we want to try to get x by itself, so we'll start by subtracting 48 from both sides. So 2x is equal to 24. And last but not least, we would divide by 2. And so we end up here with an answer of x equals 12. Now, if they wanted us to actually find particular angle measures, we could take this 12, for example, and plug it back into KHJ if we wanted to find that particular angle measure. So here's your first opportunity now. We're going to have you test out this one right here. So look at this drawing, label it, and set it up. It says the measure of ZWX is equal to 160, and we want to find the measure of each of the following items. Pause this video, try this example out, and then once you are finished, let's hit play, and I'll have solutions for you. Welcome back. At this point, hopefully you've had a chance to answer this question. I have to do a couple more pieces of it, but the idea here is we're taking this red part of the angle plus the blue part of this angle, and together, those two angles together will make up this green one. So 4x minus 12 plus 6x plus 2 equals 160. Step one was to combine like terms, then I add 10, then I divide by 10, and that's how I end up with 17. Now, in order to find ZWY, if we go back to our drawing here, is the 4x minus 12. So what I'm going to do is write that, but instead of putting the x there, I'm now going ahead and put a 17 there. and I'm going to run that through my calculator, and I get an answer of 56 degrees. Then we're going to take our blue angle, which was 6x plus 2, but in the place of x now, I'm going to go ahead and put that 17 in again, and I get an answer of 104. One cool thing that you can do to check your answer is the two angles that I got, the part and the part, should hopefully add together to give me 160, and if they do, you know you're going to be correct here. Now, last thing we're going to look at on this next page is I have a bunch of examples, 6 different examples here. So I'm going to ask you to pause at each portion here to try various parts. I will go over those parts, and then we'll talk about a few additional things here. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video again, try questions 1 through 4. Once those are being completed, go ahead then and press play, and I will have solutions for them for you. Welcome back. So for these first 3 examples, these were less algebraic than the last example you did, so these were more numeric based, which you might be able to do it without setting up an equation, but nonetheless, I did that for each example. So for the first one here, they provided the both parts. They wanted you to find the whole. But in the second example, I provided only one of the parts and the entire whole, and so you had to solve for the other part in this case. So it was 15 plus x, part plus part, equals whole, which was 55. Solve for x, and that's going to then be the measurement of GHF. Same thing goes for these next 2 examples. So in number 3, I gave you a part and a whole, set up the equation to find the other part. And lastly, in number 4, I gave you both parts. Notice I didn't even set up an equation for this one because I already knew. Go ahead and just add those 2 together. So in the last 2 examples here, we are going to be more back to some algebraic techniques. So once again, pause the video here to try both of these out. But what's different this time is I'm actually going to walk through the examples after you finish pressing pause to give you the walkthrough. So pause it now. And after you've finished, here we are back live. Let's go ahead and let's do each of these problems. So like I said, I like to color code these, so that's what we're going to do now. So NKL, that's going to be the whole thing. That's 80 degrees. Then they tell me that NKM, so that's this upper portion, is 2x plus 10. And then the last part, LKM, that's this one down here, is 4x minus 8. But once again, part plus part equals whole. So this would be 2x plus 10, the blue portion, plus 4x minus 8, the green portion, equals 80. We've got to solve for x first, so we're going to start by combining like terms. So that's the 4 and the 2. And then 10 and negative 8 is going to give me 2. We're going to then subtract 2 from both sides. We get 6x equals, what's that, 78. And then upon dividing that, I believe that answered 78 divided by 6 is going to give me 13 as a final answer. So now that we know that x is equal to 13, NKM, that's going to be the one in blue, would just be 2 times 13 plus 10. Plug that into your calculator, you get 36 degrees. And then for the green section, LKM, that would be 4 times 13 minus 8. Again, plug that in your calculator, and we get 44 degrees. We're going to try that with the very last one here as well. So let's, again, label. It's important. VYW, that's going to be this portion here is 25. Next part, doesn't matter what colors you use, by the way, if you haven't noticed. I'm just kind of picking any one that's close to me here. So XYW is going to be this portion here in blue. That's 5y minus 10. And last but not least, we have the entire angle all together. Both of them are going to add to 170. So we set up our part plus part equals whole for the last time. Start by combining like terms. In this case, the 25 and the negative 10 will combine to give me 15. We'll subtract 15 from both sides. So we get 5y equals, I believe that's 155. And last but not least, divide both sides by 5. And we end up with an answer here of 31. I believe it says just find the value of y. So that's all we did, and we're all finished. So that will conclude this lesson on the angle addition postulate. Feel free to rewind back to any of the examples to get a explanation if needed. Thank you for watching.